The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. We previously mentioned some of these stories that are written sometimes, like, for example, it's now more expensive to keep someone in prison for a year than to send them to this college or that college. Oftentimes, Harvard is used as a sort of benchmark for the expensive school. We have a new report now, which tells us that the cost of imprisoning each of the 130,000 inmates in California is expected to reach $75,560 next year, about $75,000 per year per prisoner in the California system. And now that is more than enough to cover the annual total cost of attending Harvard University. And you would still actually have plenty of money left over. And I know that at the basic level, there's no rule that says, oh, once it's more expensive than Harvard, incarceration is too expensive. But most reasonable people, when they hear these numbers, they say, well, something doesn't make sense there. And part of it, of course, is in California in particular, there's a reason that California is often selected for these, which is that in California, because of the system of incarceration that they have, it's particularly expensive. It would be less expensive in other states, especially states with generally lower cost of living, salaries, whatever the case may be. But if this is the type of analogy or comparison that it takes to get people more engaged with the incarceration problem in the United States, I'm fine for it. I know it makes good headlines, and the question is, well, what else does it do besides headlines? If it gets people thinking about this issue, I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I guess it makes people think about not only the cost of prisons, but also the cost of college in the United States. Of
Right.
course, Harvard, you'd imagine most of the people going there either are able to get some sort of aid or their parents may be able to afford it because
Sure.
maybe they're legacy kids or whatever.
Right.
But, you know, it's just good to have these benchmarks. And what's notable, too, about California's prison costs is it's actually doubled since 2005. And, of course, you know, inflation's going to play a role in that, too. But that's a big jump.
The other aspect of this is that we should also be horrified that incarceration needs to cost $75,000 before we can say it costs more than Harvard University. Like, that's also a problem, the fact that college is costing as much as it is. There is a spending plan from California Governor Jerry Brown, which starts on July 1, and it includes a record $11.4 billion for the Corrections Department. It also predicts that in 4 years, there will be 11,500 fewer inmates, which is about 8% less than what we currently have in California. And that's because voters actually in November, one of the things that was on the ballot in California was an early release initiative for many inmates, and that's a good thing. We are so backwards when it comes to incarceration in the United States, and never mind when it comes to the death penalty. And of course, some people who oppose the death, or rather who favor the death penalty, when you tell them, look at how expensive it is, they say, well, just remove all the appeals that the people on death row get access to. That'll make it way cheaper. We have people who are not guilty on death row. The last thing we need to do is expedite the execution of those people.
Yeah, and it is pretty strange why California, as a liberal state, would still have the death penalty this day and age.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it plays well into the public. They realize that that they're spending so much on prison costs.
Right.
And they just think, you know, because it's, you know, intuitive to think, okay, well, if we just kill them instead
It's cheaper.
It would be cheaper, but it's obviously not.
It's not the case. And it does, again, it's superficially the optics of it are, hey, we're not going to mess around and just pay year after year. We're going to put people to death. Yeah, it turns out it's actually more expensive in total.
And also California has that 3 strikes you're out rule. They've
right.
had that since 1994. So
Yep.
even people who are committing nonviolent crimes could be locked up for the rest of their lives. And I think that makes up about 5% of the overall prison population.
Maybe it doesn't sound like much, but it's 1 out of 20. I mean, that's still a lot of people that you're talking about. If you're talking about 8% that are going to be granted early release based on that ballot initiative, 5% who are there because of these mandatory minimums, 3 strikes, you're out type of stuff. That's already 13% just there. Forget about other types of drug crimes that we could argue should not even have people in prison to begin with.
And did you mention that there are other factors that would make imprisoning people in California more expensive than other parts
Only
of the
generally
country?
speaking. I mean,
Okay.
just it is a more expensive place than Mississippi, for example, in terms of cost of living.
Got you, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about, this is sort of a follow-up to a story from the regular show today. WikiLeaks is offering a $10,000 bounty aimed at getting a reporter for The Intercept fired after the arrest of that government contractor who allegedly leaked an NSA report to The Intercept. The Justice Department announced that it had arrested Reality Lee Winner. a 25-year-old government contractor. And you asked me earlier, Pat, whether that's her real name, and I thought that it was not, but it actually may be legally her. I'm genuinely unsure about that.
I mean, if you start with could Winner possibly be a last name, I don't know.
Yeah.
From there, if your last name's Winner, I don't think it's too crazy to have your first name be a reality.
No. I mean, it's like somebody's name could absolutely be Blue Sky. I mean,
it's like Crystal Ball, you know?
That's
Ball
right.
That's actually her name because
she's a MSNBC contributor or some kind of political person. Yeah. So as we mentioned on the show, 25-year-old government contractor, Justice Department arrests her a couple days ago for leaking classified information to The Intercept. Widely reported that she allegedly leaked the documents from the NSA to The Intercept about Russian attempts to hack U.S. election officials. And investigators were able to find Winner in part, according to a government court filing, because of clues gained when an Intercept reporter showed the leaked report to the government. So now WikiLeaks says $10,000 bounty if you can get this Intercept reporter fired, because them choosing their choice to show the report to the government is part of what led to this person eventually getting arrested, rather, so that they should be fired.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with this at all. I
Really?
mean, obviously, they have the right to put out this offer, but I just think that, the reporter doesn't have any responsibility to protect her identity. If Reality Winner wanted to eliminate whatever information before she sent it to the news agency, that would be one thing. And also, I think as the reporter, you might run the risk of covering things up and maybe even facing legal charges.
You're making fair points. Let's take it in two parts. Does the Intercept reporter have a responsibility to shield Reality Winner's name from the government or from whatever?
See, I think the onus is on her.
The answer is no. The reporter doesn't have a legal responsibility to do that. But from a point of journalistic ethics, is it something that they should be doing, which is someone has taken a risk, Reality Lee Winner, in order to provide the Intercept with this information. So in the interest of protecting your sources, which is a widely accepted journalistic aspect of integrity, was there not a moral responsibility to shield her name?
I think the question then is, would it be incriminating for the reporter to cover up where they got the source from?
I don't.
Because if it is, then I would understand why they wouldn't even, take that upon themselves. Why would they put themselves at risk?
In a normal environment, like up to more than 4.5 months ago,
right,
I would say no. The reporter is not doing anything wrong by covering up, by not revealing the source of that information. As we covered on the program this week, in the Trump era, we know that they are starting to go after not only the individual who is obtaining the classified or secret information, but also talking about going after the publishers of that information. So the answer to your question, there was one answer for a very, very long time, up until January 20th. And there's kind of a different answer right now.
I think that's why it gets tricky, because this is just another example of the Trump administration trying to hamper down on the First Amendment, you could say.
Yeah.
And $10,000 isn't really even that much,
For what you're talking about here, I mean, you're $10,000 for Trump's taxes would be laughable. $10,000 for getting a random reporter at The Intercept, who, correct me if I'm wrong, has not yet been identified specifically. It's not nothing, but it's not a crazy amount either. Yeah.
And also, how would you even go about getting them fired?
I don't know.
I mean, if you had some dirt on them, perhaps,
Maybe.
or if you worked in a position of authority at The Intercept. Otherwise, how would you do that?
Come forward if you have some information or something like that.
That's sketchy. I don't like it.
Okay, speaking of the First Amendment, though, to segue, there are growing calls that Donald Trump is effectively violating the First Amendment by blocking people on Twitter, okay? Let me walk you through the logic of it. Donald Trump in 2017 is using Twitter the way that other presidents might use White House press briefings, direct addresses to the population of the United States, press conferences, whatever. And that as a result, when the president blocks someone on Twitter, it is a government actor. It is the president of the United States, after all, somehow limiting the ability for free expression of individuals. I tend to reject that notion, and I reject it on a couple of fronts. One is a merely technical front, which is this is not the White House Twitter account that we're talking about. We're talking about Donald Trump's personal Twitter account that he's had for a very, very long time. But there's another aspect to this, which is if Donald Trump blocks you on Twitter, you can still say whatever you want to say on Twitter. It's just that Donald Trump is not going to see it because he has blocked you. So I know that the Knight First Amendment Institute has put an open letter out there to Donald Trump, and they're basically saying that they believe that because Twitter has become a, quote, designated public forum, that First Amendment protections would apply. But again, there's one other argument, I guess, that could be made, which is if Trump blocks someone, those users can no longer see Trump's tweets. Because when they try to access Trump's page, it would say, you have been blocked from following this account.
And
even that
have
is
to make another account.
Even that is specious, because you wouldn't even have to make another account. If you're logged out, Donald Trump doesn't have a protected Twitter account. If you're logged out, then you would all of a sudden be able to see Donald Trump's tweets again. So I am really concerned about serious infringements upon free speech and media freedom under the Trump administration. I think it makes sense to pick our battles, and there are some serious battles to fight. And I wouldn't put Trump blocking people on Twitter on that list.
On these private platforms, I mean, we want to encourage free speech whenever possible. I mean, people even get upset when you block them on your live streams or on the YouTube videos.
I'll say.
And I think, obviously, whenever possible, you should just promote free speech, even if it is in a private setting.
Sure.
But there's no government mandate that you have to do that.
There
and I don't
isn't.
think there is in this instance either.
And just because you have government officials using the private platform, I still do not believe that it is a First Amendment issue. But we will see if anything ultimately comes of it. That is it for today. Remember, no Friday show this week. I'll be traveling. We'll be doing some professional development, but I'll be back with stories on Monday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.